I'm Skip Elshammer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show. We started right off with YouTube clamping down, and this is not boding well. The fact that it's happened 3 times in the last 2 weeks. This might be heading towards something where YouTube is really gonna bring it down, and I'm not going to be able to stream live again. So in the comments, I would love for you to talk about other streaming experiences where you've been able to comment and that you like, because maybe this is just what 2022 is going to be, is YouTube finally becoming unusable. We're going to keep showing films, and regardless of what YouTube does, and so they can F off. Anyways, thank you, Robert, for the coffee. You got coffee for me just before the hammer came down. We're just trying to show some old stuff. And, a lot of these claims are bogus. It's really frustrating. Anyways, behind me I have a film transfer machine, a telecine, and we're going to watch a film there. So, hopefully I won't get canceled on that. So, here we go. This is, I need to actually type this in. This is, what is it? How to produce electric current with magnets. Enjoy.
This gadget is a balance. You can see that it is in balance now. This is a magnet. The magnet has no effect on the balance. The copper strip around the edge of the balance is connected through these pivot points to a battery. When the switch is closed, electric charges will flow through this circuit. The flow is shown by this meter. The magnet has no effect until the switch is closed and electric charges flow through the copper strip at the end of the balance. The magnet affects the balance only when there is a current in it. It affects the balance with enough force so that you have to put weight on the other end, in this case some sugar, to make it balance again. Here is a magnetic needle removed from a compass. It can be affected by another magnet. Let's see what effect an electric current in a wire will have on the magnetic needle. Again, magnetism and electricity seem to have some connection. Notice that when the current is turned on, the red end of the needle swings toward us. With the flow of current reversed, the needle swings the other way. here's a piece of iron. As you can see, it's not a magnet. But perhaps you know what will happen when we put the iron inside a coil of wire and let electric charges flow through the coil. An electric current can produce a magnetic effect. In fact, this is called an electromagnet. An electromagnet acts as a magnet only as long as electricity is flowing through it. Here's an electromagnet powerful enough to pick up a load of steel bars. Electric currents can produce magnetic effects. Now let's see if the opposite is true. Can magnets produce electric currents? This coil of wire is not connected. It's connected in circuit with this meter, and that's all. There is no current in this circuit. There are electric charges in the wire and the meter, but nothing is making them move. And there is electric current only when electric charges are moving. Watch the meter when this magnet is brought close to the coil. There were electric charges flowing through that circuit for a moment. There again, but in the opposite direction. Somehow the magnet is making the electric charges in the circuit flow, but only when the magnet is moving. If we keep the magnet moving, we're able to generate a fairly continual current in the circuit. What's making the headlight burn? Is there a battery? No, there isn't any battery in this motor scooter. That's odd. The lights don't go out in a car when you turn off the engine. What makes the electric current that lights this headlight? The answer is magnets. The magnets are inside here. This is a magnet. When the motor is running, it makes these magnets move past the coils of wire. As they move past, the magnets cause the electric charges in the coils to move, producing an electric current. Just as we are doing here. Here's another device that can be used to produce electric current. In this one, the magnets don't move. Instead, the coils move in relation to the magnets. When the machine is cranked rapidly, it produces enough electric current to light a bulb. Machines that produce or generate electric current are called generators. You can generate electric current either by moving coils in relation to magnets or by moving magnets in relation to coils. We've already seen that a coil or wire with a current running through it can produce magnetic effects. Could we use this coil instead of a permanent magnet to produce an electric current in the other coil? Let's see. Of course, we could generate an electric current without moving the coil at all. What's generating current now? The nails are affected by the electromagnet, but the effect is weak. If we move the electromagnet closer, the effect is stronger. When there is a current in the coil, the magnetic effect is strong. When there is no current, the effect is weak. In fact, there is no magnetic effect at all. By opening and closing the switch, we are making the magnetic effect weak, then strong, then weak, then strong. In other words, has the same effect as moving it in and out. So we're producing an electric current in this circuit simply by turning the electric current on and off in this circuit. Water power is used to turn the generators in the powerhouse of this dam. These huge generators work on the same basic principle as this generator. We are producing an electric current here by moving a magnet. And basically the same thing is happening here. Inside these generators, magnets are moving past coils producing electric current. They are producing a great deal of it, enough to light a city.
Okay, now we got it. Yeah, so it was Mystery Science Theater that took me down. It wasn't Mystery Science Theater really, as I have a good relationship with them. And they would know, if it was them personally, that the shorts that they would riff on are actually in public domain. So it's YouTube's robots that are the problem. YouTube's robots are knee-jerk. And they suck. So again, there was a suggestion or two where things would go. So where we could potentially go to if YouTube brings us down consistently, and it would be a place that where you guys could comment and all that stuff. So that's what we're thinking about. In the meantime. And if you have some more suggestions about positive experiences you've had, we talked about doing a Zoom yesterday. Zoom, I'm not a big fan. I mean, it's all right, but it's a lot of overhead. Yeah, if you have some other suggestions, I'll write them down and I'll start investigating, just in case things become intolerable on YouTube. Facebook is less of a problem, but even then, they still kind of have problems. And we're also broadcasting on Twitch, we're broadcasting on Twitter, so those are other places you can go look. But the commenting on Twitter you can't comment, and Twitch is better, but Twitch goes away over a period of time. In the meantime, let's learn about hazards of tire hydroplating in aircraft operations. Enjoy.
Hydroplaning can mean pleasure, or it can mean trouble. Hydroplaning keeps water skis on top and can lift aircraft tires off the runway. This results in extremely low friction coefficients. Aircraft tests have confirmed that braking effectiveness is generally reduced when operating on even slightly wet runways, because of lubrication effects between tire and ground. However, the same aircraft tests show even greater reductions of braking effectiveness in the presence of a deep fluid, in this case slush, and it is under these conditions that tire hydroplaning becomes a serious problem. The NASA Langley Research Center has for some time conducted research on this problem, initially with a small wheel and belt arrangement, but more recently at one of its facilities called the Landing Loads Track. The test carriage at this facility can be catapulted by a water jet to speeds in excess of 100 knots. In this research program, various aircraft landing gears and aircraft tires were mounted on the test carriage and equipped with detailed instrumentation. During these studies of tire behavior, the runway conditions varied from dry to covered with 2 inches of water. The effects of slush depths from 1/2 inch to 2 inches were also investigated. It was substantiated during this research program that on wet runways, partial hydroplaning occurred at the lower speeds, and at a higher speed and under certain repeatable conditions, total hydroplaning developed and wheel rotation stopped completely. On the basis of the research, we can explain this phenomenon and offer a simplified explanation of the physical principles. On a standing tire, the only force acting is the ground reaction caused by the weight or vertical load on the tire. For a rolling tire, the situation is more complex, since ground friction, tire deformation, and tire hysteresis are involved. Let us assume that the tire is rolling freely at a fixed forward speed on a dry runway. A rolling resistance force acts in a direction opposite to the motion of the tire and produces a moment on the tire in the accelerating or spin-up direction. To maintain a constant rolling velocity, this spin-up moment must be opposed by an equal spin-down moment, which is produced by a shift of the vertical ground reaction to a position ahead of the wheel axle center line. The introduction of deep fluid on the runway complicates the picture further, since additional drag on the tire is produced when the fluid is displaced from the wheel path. Also, as the forward speed is increased, the spray pattern thrown up by the tire changes, and a wedge of fluid penetrates the ground contact region, reducing the ground contact area and producing a hydrodynamic lift force on the tire and a condition of partial hydroplaning. As the forward speed is further increased, the spray becomes flatter, the wedge of fluid penetrates further into the ground contact region, and the hydrodynamic lift force becomes progressively greater until at some high forward speed, the hydrodynamic lift force becomes equal to the vertical load being supported by the tire. At this point, complete separation occurs between the tire and the ground. This is the condition of total hydroplaning. Under this condition, ground frictional forces causing spin-up are reduced, since large shear forces cannot be developed in a fluid, and the predominating spin-down moment tends to stop wheel rotation. With further increases in speed beyond total hydroplaning, a large reduction in fluid drag force develops because the tire rides up out of the fluid and hydroplanes along the fluid surface. Directional stability and braking effectiveness of the tire are therefore progressively reduced through partial hydroplaning conditions and nearly vanish at total hydroplaning speeds. The Federal Aviation Agency has conducted tests of an aircraft in an artificial slush bed, which strikingly demonstrated a loss in directional stability and control due to tire hydroplaning. In this free rolling test, the airplane entered the slush bed at 120 knots, and a crosswind component of 9 knots induced a yaw which could not be corrected by the pilot until exit from the slush bed. With regard to braking effectiveness, large reductions were observed on the aircraft and at the track at the higher speeds in deep fluid. When wheel rotation stops under total hydroplaning conditions, the futility of applying brakes is obvious. Not so obvious, however, is the reduced braking effectiveness that exists under partial hydroplaning conditions. Analysis of the results of this research program indicated that, surprisingly, changing the weight carried by the tire appears to have little effect on the speed at which total hydroplaning occurs. As the weight on the tire changes, the footprint area changes, so that the ratio of weight to area remains constant, and this ratio is essentially the tire inflation pressure. It is this pressure which the hydrodynamic lift pressure must equal over the entire footprint area for total hydroplaning to occur. The relation between forward speed and tire inflation pressure, the two major factors involved in tire hydroplaning, was studied in controlled tests at the track. With identical vertical load and fluid depth on the runway, the total hydroplaning velocity, as manifested by a decrease in wheel RPM and a leveling off of fluid drag, was, for a tire pressure of 25 pounds per square inch, about 45 knots. For 50 pounds per square inch, about 63 knots. And for 75 pounds per square inch, about 78 knots. These and other test results indicated that a remarkably simple expression based on classical hydrodynamic lift theory could be used to quite accurately predict the total hydroplaning speed. This expression states that the total hydroplaning velocity in knots is equal to 9 times the square root of the tire inflation pressure as measured in pounds per square inch. The hydroplaning speed calculated by this simple expression agrees well with a number of experimentally observed cases of total tire hydroplaning. These cases, obtained from data available at Langley Research Center, were for a variety of pneumatic tire sizes and inflation pressures. Remember, however, that hydroplaning is a progressive phenomenon, and significant losses in braking and directional control are likely to occur below this speed. Based on this figure, the average automobile would be susceptible to total hydroplaning at a speed of around 50 miles an hour, well within legal speed limits. Typical propeller-driven transport aircraft might encounter this condition at about 72 knots. Typical jet transport aircraft might come under the influence of hydroplaning at speeds of 100 knots. Current heavy jet bombers and carrier-based fighters might reach hydroplaning conditions at 160 knots, owing to the very high tire pressures used. While hydroplaning is a deep fluid phenomenon, the actual depth of fluid required is not well defined and depends on runway characteristics and tire tread design. In tests at the landing loads track, which had a fairly smooth test surface, hydroplaning of smooth tires occurred on a runway covered with water to an average depth of 0.15 of an inch. Although rougher or more uneven surfaces might require a greater average fluid depth for continuous hydroplaning to develop, the hazard does exist of intermittent hydroplaning occurring in large puddles. A fighter nose gear was mounted on the small carriage at the track in order to learn more, through photographs and force measurements, about what happens in the tire-ground contact region for partial and for total hydroplaning. Action of water in the footprint area was recorded by a high-speed camera mounted beneath a glass plate in the runway as the tire passed overhead. In this first run, with the tire moving at a speed below total hydroplaning speed, the darker area of the footprint is the contact area between tire and ground. The lighter area of the footprint is the portion supported by the water. This partial separation between footprint and ground indicates a loss in braking effectiveness and directional stability, even under partial hydroplaning conditions. In this run, with the tire moving at a speed above total hydroplaning speed, the complete absence of a dark contact area indicates complete separation between tire and ground, with the entire footprint area now being supported by the water. These tests indicated that tire tread pattern can influence the hydroplaning speed if the grooves provide escape paths for the fluid trapped between the tire and the ground. Since no such relief is available on a smooth tread, hydroplaning would occur in shallower fluids and at lower speeds. The factors then which affect hydroplaning speed are tire inflation pressure, runway fluid depth, runway surface character, and tire tread pattern. Partial hydroplaning has been shown to cause losses in directional control, reduction in braking coefficients, and partial separation of tire from ground. Total hydroplaning can result in complete separation of tire from ground, a reduction in fluid drag, a change in spray pattern, possible wheel spin down, and further reductions in directional control and braking effectiveness. The loss of braking effectiveness in shallow fluid depths, or the greater loss under tire hydroplaning conditions in the deeper fluids, can result in far longer stopping distances for wet than for dry runways. The hydroplaning speed predicted by the simple relation 9 times the square root of P gives a total hydroplaning speed which is, for nearly all current aircraft, within normal operating speed ranges during takeoff and landing. In order to minimize the adverse effects of tire hydroplaning, landings and takeoffs in excessive crosswinds should be avoided on very wet or flooded runways. Further, when landings must be made on a very wet runway, operational techniques such as minimum touchdown speed, early runway contact, early use of brakes, and where possible, use of spoilers and reverse thrust should be employed to minimize the potential hazards of tire hydroplaning and promote safer operations.
Kept me guessing on the YouTube comments. I was reading all this talk about Van Halen. I was like, what? Huh? And I guess someone said that one of the math formulas looked like the logo. Okay. You guys are great in that regard. I never know what, when I look at the comments, I'm like, where are we going with this? What? Okay, sure. And this is really like when I do live shows. This is what happens sometimes is we get some free associations going on, so it's pretty funny. All right, I got another film set up on the telecine behind me. And I have to write the title again. This is Beautiful Color, I seem to remember. And this is Heating Safely. Oh yeah, I should say, that whole thing about tire hydroplaning with aircraft, That film was a little dry, but it's still very important because this just happened a couple of weeks ago at the Raleigh airport. RDU, a plane was in some slush and skidded off the runway. So it's still a thing that we have to think about. So there you go. Okay, anyways, so here's heating safely. Enjoy.
I know you're busy, but take a look at these headlines, Chief. That's the third family in a month to be wiped out by fire. My paper wants to know what can be done about these fires and what your department is doing.
Plenty, Tom, but the fire department needs a lot of help.
Well, what kind of help?
Help in telling people how to save themselves.
Well, what do you mean?
The people who use portable oil heaters need a little knowledge of how to use them, and a little more respect for kerosene.
Is that all it takes? Then there's nothing wrong with the heaters?
No, nearly all of the heaters sold in this town are good, reliable makes, but disregard of a few simple fire prevention rules can make a hazard out of anything.
You say a few simple fire prevention rules. For instance?
Well, here, I'll show you. Hey, Charlie. Charlie, let's run the film again. We made a film to show throughout the county. I just finished showing it to a training class. All right, Charlie. When we started having these portable heater and kerosene fires a few months ago, we made a thorough examination of the causes. And then we said, let's face it, thousands of people need these heaters for low-cost heat. But the people who use them also need a little training in how to use them. So here's rule number 1. Always fill your heater out of doors with kerosene only, no other fuel. And be sure the kerosene has not been contaminated with gasoline. If you fill it indoors, any spillage is apt to be hazardous. Rule number 2, never fill the heater while it's hot. Let it cool off. Keep your kerosene in a safety can, clearly marked. Don't use this can for anything else except kerosene, or coal oil as it is sometimes called. Don't fill the heater reservoir clear full. When the heater warms up, the oil will expand and spill out. Light your heater after you get in the house. Never carry a lighted heater. Be sure the heater is a safe distance from curtains, upholstery, or anything that might catch fire, such as furniture or bedding. And be sure it's out of traffic so no one will bump into it and tip it over. And be sure, too, that it is standing absolutely level. Remember that oil heaters consume oxygen, so always keep a door or window open slightly in the room where the heater is burning. This is a most important rule. There are a few other rules, such as those concerning keeping the heaters clean, but those are the main ones. If everybody who operated a heater would follow those rules, we'd save some lives.
You mentioned kerosene. Now, what is your word of caution about that?
Kerosene is deceptive. People are apt to be fooled by it. So here's my advice. Never use it to start or quicken a fire in your wood or coal-burning stoves, kitchen, or fireplace. When used that way, it can be just as dangerous as gasoline.
How about other types of heaters? How do you advise that they be used?
Well, you better take a look at more of my film. All right, Charlie. In many parts of the country, gas heaters are commonly used. We recommend that these heaters be permanently connected by metal pipe to the gas connection. Not this type of connection, The rubber tubing is too apt to be jarred and become disconnected. Again, as in the case of the oil heater, a window should be left open in any room in which the gas heater is burning. In the case of electric heaters, take care to see they are not operated near curtains, furniture, or anything that might catch fire. Check the cord before you use it to make sure it is still in good condition. Keep the heater away from plumbing and keep it dry. Don't touch electrical appliances while in the bathtub or near the sink. Be sure the heater doesn't overload electrical circuits, that too many appliances are not plugged into one outlet.
These rules aren't complicated, but if they're going to work, everybody has to know about them.
That's where I come in, right?
Right. Can you do something?
I sure can. My paper will get behind you, and we go into 9/10 of the homes in this county.
We'll reach every home. My boys will make door-to-door calls themselves.
That'll be a story. Will you do it?
You bet we will, and when everyone knows the rules, we'll save some lives.
We have another film that was made by the same people. I think it's called Heroine of the Week, which I feel like we've shown, which is basically a babysitter learns what to do in case of a fire. So great stuff there. All right, what do we got? What do we got? So much stuff to watch. All right, this is going to run long, but, you know, whatever. Bob Hope. We all love Bob Hope, right? Well, this is Bob Hope for the Army and the Air National Guard. Enjoy. When the chips are down.
All right, men, keep an eye on them now. We don't want them getting in our way. Hey, this is Bob, ready with your National Guard Hope. And I want to tell you that the story of today's Army and Air National Guard is something all Americans can be proud of. Okay, men, they're getting too close. Let them have it. Look at them run. Get in our way, will they? That'll teach them. Is the coast clear? All right. Thank you, men. Thank you. Hold it. Hold it, men. Hold it. They're not really running away, folks. They're just moving into position for some sharpshooting. At the rate they're moving, they'll be there in no time. These M42s can move along at 40 miles per hour, and that's really hustling for babies this size. You know, the story of any military organization is found in its men, in its machines, and in its missions. These men are Virginia Army National Guardsmen, and that's a radio-controlled aerial target, better known to these guys as an R-CAT. Their mission is to shoot it down. Once this little bird gets airborne, it's up to the R-CAT controller to keep it flying on its prescribed course. You might say he's one pilot who flies with both feet on the ground. When these guys open up on that R-CAT, they have the capability of pumping out 120 rounds per minute from each tube or barrel. Man, that's 240 rounds per minute. Glad they're on our side. Incidentally, the weapon I've been referring to is the M42 Duster. Its heyday was a generation ago during World War II when it dusted enemy aircraft from the skies. After World War II, the Army gave the entire Duster system to the Army National Guard. The Guardsmen took the weapon, trained on it, and became professionally competent with it. Watch them go after this R-CAT. I mean? That's what I call coming in for a soft landing. Makes things a little softer in our pocketbooks, too. If you've been thinking that guardsmen face a paper enemy in the field on these training exercises, don't say it out loud. The Guard uses its own aggressors right from its own ranks to oppose the good guys on field exercises like this one at Camp Grayling, Michigan. Coordination is a key factor in any exercise. These guardsmen are checking the lay of the terrain prior to the exercise. Battle planning strategy is just as important to the bad guys as it is to the heroes. These men are jumping off on an attack which will test the reaction and effectiveness of elements of the 107th Armored Cavalry Regiment of the Ohio Army National Guard. The guerrillas have plenty going for them, as you can see. These scenes are typical of the realistic combat conditions guardsmen undergo at training sites throughout the United States as well as overseas. Things could get a little hot around here. Gotta hand it to him, though. He really knows how to use that oversized cigarette lighter. I don't know about you, but as for me, I'm not too sure, but I'd just as soon be on the aggressor's side in this battle. I'm just kidding. It's mighty comforting to know the bad guys are really good guys in this case. They're all part of the National Guard team. It's red, white, and blue as Old Glory herself. Now, if heavier reinforcements were needed, the Guard has them too. This honest John rocket can deliver a mighty punch if needed. Manning these powerful rockets takes a lot of training, believe me. But these guardsmen are well trained and well prepared. The Army National Guard is composed of many different type units, including airborne and special forces. Organizations that demand the best in courage and stamina. These West Virginia Army Guardsmen are preparing to board a West Virginia Air Guard plane for a challenging night operation. Because of the nature of their military responsibilities, National Guardsmen don't accept the words professionalism and readiness as mere slogans. That guy reminds me of Crosby trying to get to the bank with all his loot. There's no room for the timid in an outfit like this. No, sir. And the important thing to remember is that Guardsmen have accepted their responsibilities readily. They're all volunteers. Men who have stood up, ready to be counted if their country needs them. By their oath, they're pledged, irrevocably, to safeguard the nation and its institutions against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Any Guardsman who is worthy of the name accepts this as a fact of service. Guardsmen are citizen soldiers, and their purpose is the American purpose. For more than 300 years now, theirs has been an unbroken record of duty accomplished, of lives saved, of property secured, and of order in the face of potential chaos. Because of the close ties of the Army and the Air National Guard, they are working together continuously. These Rhode Island Army Guardsmen, for example, are practicing an infiltration operation with the help of their Rhode Island Air Guard buddies. The Air Guard has 4 of these Air Commando units, 2 of which are equipped with this HU-16 amphibian aircraft. In situations where commando units require either a land or sea rendezvous or both, this sturdy flying boat can maneuver about and land almost anywhere with ease. Guardsmen are trained to operate under all climatic conditions over all types of terrain. Because the Guard is dispersed in communities throughout the United States, you'll find that many men already are skilled in many of their military assignments before they ever raise their hand to take the oath as a member of the Guard. And that saves dollars for the taxpayers. Natural wild surroundings of the West Yellowstone area set the scene for these Montana Special Forces Guardsmen as they work their way to the top of this barren outcropping. Ordinarily, this cliff would be considered a dangerous obstacle, but danger is just another word to these guys. They figured that the best way around is over the side. Some people call this a gung-ho gravitational go-mobile. Let's watch this fellow. Well, now that wasn't bad. However, if you'd rather take the express route, man, that's what I'd call moving. These guys are on the move, too. Graceful movements, cat-like responses, superb balance and control. That's what it takes for a ballet like this. Yet those are the talents of these Montanans that contribute to their capabilities as guardsmen. They're a proud bunch, and they've got a right to be. Now, it's pretty nice to get paid for this type of thing, but it's training with a purpose. They're actually on a mission to ambush a mythical enemy outpost. Once they reach the area of operations, a brief planning session is all that's needed to finalize the plan of attack. Strict silence becomes the order of the day as the guardsmen close in on their objective. They know the outpost is somewhere close. Then, without warning, they spot the enemy just a few yards away. Because silence is imperative in a situation like this, the usual weapons are not employed. The quiet deadliness of a swift arrow does a much better job. Don't be alarmed. It was just a dummy. From the deep snows of Montana to the tropical beauty of Hawaii. That gives you some idea of the Guard's scope of geographical operations. They reach into Alaska and Puerto Rico, too. These Hawaii Guardsmen are on a routine patrol in an exercise that will eventually bring aerial support from mainland Air Guard units. A last-minute check of plans is made before the troops move out for the objective. You know, the Guard is composed of many veterans of World War II, of Korea, and even Vietnam. Their background and know-how provides a measurement of leadership that should serve as comfort to any parent whose son has joined the Guard. These veteran Guardsmen know the ropes. They've had battle experience. They've been leading men for years, and they know their business, including the techniques of camouflage. See anything? Well, watch. You hear a lot about mortar fire in Vietnam. Well, this is what a mortar looks like. Guardsmen are trained on them, as well as every other fire system with which they're armed. Here's a grenade launcher. It's an accurate little weapon. Just watch. Bullseye. And if you really want to clobber a target, grab one of these 106 millimeter recoilless rifles. These Guardsmen operate this weapon with perfection. Bullseye again. Really packs a wallop, doesn't it? If anyone thinks it's all sunshine and flowers in Hawaii, just look at this. This is the Air Guard's radar station atop Mount Koala. Nestled in virgin forest and frequently invaded by wild pigs, this outpost, 4,000 feet high, is shrouded in fog much of the time. That doesn't bother these Hawaiians, however. That radar sweeps through that fog and reaches miles in all directions of the Pacific in surveillance against a possible enemy attack. Nearby, other Guardsmen receive and interpret the information collected by the radar atop of the mountain. Each Guardsman is a specialist, and each knows his responsibility, like this fellow riding backwards on a transparent wall. If you want some fun, try that sometime. This man has located some Air Guard aerial tankers and jet fighters who are flying from the mainland. They're about 200 miles out, and the radar shows that they're about to rendezvous for the fighter refueling. Then they will continue to Hawaii, where they will take part in exercises with the active Army and with the Army Guard. The Air Guard has 5 air refueling units equipped with the KC-97 aircraft. With 4 reciprocating engines and 2 jet engines, these birds really get out and move. These tankers from the Illinois, Ohio, and Wisconsin Air Guard provide the fuel for the jet fighters making the deployment. They're F-84s from the Ohio Air National Guard. Imagine meeting a couple of thousand miles over the ocean to gas up. It's a bit different from pulling into the corner service station. This refueling capability within the Guard makes it possible for the Guard's fighter units to deploy anywhere in the world in a matter of hours. These air guardsmen are operationally ready too. And that means that they're ready for combat the minute they get where they're going. After landing at Hickam Air Force Base, the Guardsmen prepare to launch a mission to the island of Hawaii. They get a thorough briefing on their mission and pinpoint the target areas. These are your citizen airmen. These air crews meet the same standards as the active Air Force air crews do. They do not ask, nor do they receive any credit for performing their roles as part-time airmen. Most of these men are successful businessmen in their home communities. And the National Guard believes that it is highly unlikely that a citizen soldier or citizen airman would demonstrate qualities as a soldier or airman that he does not possess as a citizen. This operation was known as Tropic Lightning. It's a good example of the support the Guard provides to active military service. These fighters were working with Army ground troops. As a part of their training for combat, they participate in operations in which close air support is demonstrated. Because the Air Guard is able to support these missions, the Air Force can turn its attention to higher priority missions. Trained for all combat tactics, these fighter pilots carry out airstrikes with speed and efficiency. Sortie is planned and coordinated with precision. The Guard works closely with other services too. These RF-84s of the Alabama Air Guard are taking off on a photo reconnaissance mission over Puerto Rico in exercise clove hitch, while another plane has just returned with a load of film for immediate processing. Clove hitch was a massive operation in the Caribbean involving all the services. Air Guard jet fighters, reconnaissance aircraft, and aerial tankers joined these Navy men from the aircraft carrier Forrestal, proving once again that teamwork among the services provides the background for effective defense whenever and wherever needed. Marines were participants too. They came ashore by sea and air. Here they are engaging in an air assault after being dispatched from ships at sea to reinforce infantry elements ashore. All Guardsmen swear allegiance to the state and to the nation. For that reason, they train not only for their federal mission, but for their state mission as well. These Guardsmen are playing the part of rioters in this training session. In the event police forces are overwhelmed, the National Guard is the only force immediately available to a community for the distasteful assignment of quelling civil disorder. But the Guard has had to face the real thing on many occasions lately. In most cases, folks have recognized the unpleasantness of the duty, and they've accepted the Guard as a force for the preservation of law and order. Whether you're young or old, however, facing a shouting mob or a lurking sniper calls for the highest degree of discipline. This is what the Guardsmen faced in Cicero, Illinois, when demonstrators marched. These are scenes from the Watts riot, where 2 divisions of Guardsmen were called to duty. The usual fire damage and destruction followed us in each riot, while patrolling Guardsmen surveyed troubled streets searching for snipers. Watch closely now. This is a spectacular shot of a fireman just as he's hit by sniper fire. It's a dangerous, frightening duty, but Guardsmen face up to this responsibility as they face up to all others. Because of the increased intensity of violence in our cities, the Guard has accelerated its riot control training. This was Detroit, the highest level of damage and violence ever experienced in an American city. Fires and lots of ruined personal property, snipers, looting, and more destruction. The protection of personal property always has its problems, especially when the trouble spreads like quicksilver over an area plagued by hidden dangers. 2 Guardsmen were assigned to every fire truck to protect the firemen from sniper fire. They were mighty busy, on duty for long hours with little rest, as they helped the weary firefighters battle more than 800 fires. Whenever a flood, tornado, or other disaster strikes a community, the Guard is usually there. This flood brought out the Guard in Kansas, where the Guardsmen played an important role in rescuing the stranded and protecting property. Guardsmen were on the scene immediately, aiding those who suffered in the tragedy in whatever way they could. Ever wonder who fills those sandbags that line the shores of an angry river? Ever wonder how those sandbags get on the riverbank? You're looking at the answer to both questions. Those bags weigh 40 to 50 pounds each. Every means is used to reach the stricken who need help. Trucks slowly search out victims. Guard helicopters do their share to assist in rescuing persons stranded in remote areas. Few tragedies strike with more fury than a howling tornado. This one leveled half of Oak Lawn, Illinois. 50 lives were lost during this freak of nature. Guardsmen were on the job immediately, searching debris, helping out the wounded, assisting firemen fighting fires, and restoring power and communications. This school was all but demolished. Shattered ruins offer mute resistance to the presence of patrolling Guardsmen, alert to the possibility of looters. Because the Guard plays a vital role in providing medical assistance in these disasters, nurses are a necessary part in both the Army and Air National Guard. The Air Guard flies many aeromedical missions for the Air Force, and its aeromedical personnel have comforted many victims of the Vietnam War. Assisted by the medics, these nurses fly missions around the world. They work around the clock when necessary to comfort the sick, disabled, and wounded. This specialist helps the nurse check oxygen equipment aboard this C-97. If you really want to find out how terrific these people are, just ask some of the boys who've been wounded in Vietnam. This is Captain Betty Aiken of the Tennessee Air National Guard. She's made more than 23 trips to Vietnam. Here she administers aid to an air-evacuated patient. Air Guard nurses receive specialized training so they can meet in-flight emergencies.
I understand you have a pretty bad back injury. Have you ever flown before?
Yeah, with good-looking nurses like that around, who wants to be healthy?
What they need are more beautiful nurses like me.
Yeah, we save your kind for us taxpayers. Much has been said and written concerning the tradition and heritage of the National Guard. Throughout its long history, the Guard has always attracted men of the highest caliber, many of whom gone on to become great leaders and respected figures of prominence in the world. For example, George Washington, one of our early militiamen. Others make an impressive list. Here are just a few. Abraham Lincoln. Yes, sir. Old Honest Abe, our 16th president. He started with the militia in 1832 and became a captain with the 4th Regiment of the Illinois Volunteers. Harry S. Truman, our 33rd president. Served as a World War I artillery officer, commanding Battery D of the 135th Field Artillery, Missouri National Guard. Charles A. Lindbergh, hero of the aviation world, who won fame with the first solo flight over the Atlantic Ocean in 1927. Lindy's military career began in the 110th Observation Squadron, Missouri National Guard. He was granted leave to make his flight. General Earl G. Wheeler, the top military man in the United States as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, began his military service as a member of the District of Columbia Army National Guard. General Curtis LeMay, former Chief of Staff of the Air Force, he started his illustrious career in the Ohio Army National Guard as an artilleryman. Brigadier General Charles W. Sweeney, Deputy Chief of Staff for Air, Massachusetts Air National Guard. He piloted the B-29 that dropped the second atomic bomb on Japan. Its target, Nagasaki. Brigadier General Joseph J. Foss, South Dakota Air National Guard. Former governor of that state, a top ace who won the Medal of Honor in World War II. Captain Larry B. Mason, a veteran of Vietnam who joined the Michigan Air National Guard. Awarded the Air Force Cross for extraordinary heroism in Vietnam. While attacking an enemy target, his B-57 tactical jet bomber was hit repeatedly. With a wounded navigator aboard, one engine shut down and the other one on fire, approximately 30 square feet of surface area missing from the right wing, and most of the electrical system knocked out, this young pilot nursed his plane to a safe landing in friendly territory. The Guard also numbers prominent figures in the fields of entertainment and sports among those in its ranks. Here is Bobby Rydell, popular singing and recording star, seen here performing at the Caribe Hilton in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Bobby is a specialist 4th class in the Pennsylvania Army National Guard. Bob Lilly, 6 feet 5 inches, 255 pounds. All-pro defensive tackle with the Dallas Cowboys of the National Football League. Airman in the Texas Air National Guard. Bob Hayes, teammate of Lilly's with the Cowboys. All-pro offensive flanker. Member of the Texas Army National Guard. He's known as the world's fastest unit. And you can see why. Gary Anderson, lieutenant in the California Army National Guard. His specialty, shooting. He's the guy who set 3 new records in winning the World's Rifle Championship at Cairo in 1962. Won 2 gold medals in the 1963 Pan Am Games. Set a new world record and picked up a gold medal in the Olympics at Japan in 1964 and won 7 gold medals during 1966, firing in International Shooting Union-sponsored events. Gary, by the way, is studying for the ministry. If you think the sky's the limit for ex-guardsmen, you're absolutely right. And here are some of the men who can prove it. Russell L. Schweikart, better known as Rusty, former member of the Massachusetts Air National Guard and the first guardsman to be selected for astronaut training directly from the Guard. You're watching him at work in a zero-gravity situation, ironing out bugs so future space flights can be as safe as possible. If you haven't spotted him yet, he's the guy with the red hair. Donald K. Deke Slayton, one of the original 7 astronauts. At one time in his career was a member of the Minnesota Air National Guard. Deke has taken over the administrative responsibilities pertaining to all astronauts in NASA's program. Charles Conrad, Jr., astronaut who has orbited the Earth on 2 occasions and is raring to go again. He's a former member of the Pennsylvania Army National Guard. That's just a few. There are many others. Like the men you've just seen, however, guardsmen represent a cross-section of the community. In reality, the Guard is the community. That's why it's an organization you can count on. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Earl Wheeler, once characterized the Guard by saying, "From my long association with the National Guard, I've arrived at 2 conclusions. First, as a military organization, it is consistently better than the material with which it is equipped. Second, when the chips are down, the Guard surmounts whatever obstacles confront it and gets the job done." Well, the Guard's been that way for more than 330 years now. That's right, 330 years. Its past has been one of glory and accomplishment. But like that Saturn rocket, it has a long way to go. It'll reach higher and higher achievements in the future. This, then, is really not the end. It's just a beginning.
So I'm glad that some of you noticed he said Saturn. Saturn. It's very weird. He said something else really strange too. But here's my guess. That this film came out as a way to get people in the for recruiting. And the Air National Guard was not always pictured in the best light in the media, given Kent State and some other things. And this was a way to say, hey, look at all the great people. Hey, look how great this is. That's my guess. I'm not sure. So this was a promotional thing, probably shown high schools, junior colleges, technical schools, etc. Maybe on television even. Just to kind of say, like, here's greatness. Greatness, you don't even have to leave the country. So, Bob Hope. Phyllis Diller, too. That's great. Anyways, thanks, guys, for tuning in today. I'm sorry we started off with clowns and with a copyright hammer coming down. But we'll be back again tomorrow. Tomorrow's all twos. So, we'll see what happens with that. Everybody have a great rest of your day. And we will see you soon. If you like what you saw, you can buy some coffee. I just realized I have the 500 thing in the text there. I have to get rid of that. You can buy us coffee at ko-fi.com. You can also hit the thumbs up, the like, all that stuff are ways to say that you like what we do in spite of what we show and what YouTube thinks about us. Appreciate your time and your eyeballs, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.